We had a couple people come on the show yesterday, talk about how much they like the Rams. Who do you think wins this NFC West division?
Yeah, I mean, I think nobody gets to take credit for predicting worst to first this year if the Niners end up doing it. Like, I almost think we should put an asterisk next to the statistic. I'll give you the history lesson. In 19 of the last 22 years, let me repeat that, 19 of the last 22 years. And last year it didn't happen. So really, crazy. If you go back to prior to 2024, 19 of the last 21 years, you've seen a team go worst to first. And to be fair to last year's crop, which was Patriots, Bengals, Titans, Chargers, Commanders, Bears, Panthers, Cardinals. However, you did have the Chargers and Commanders both make the playoffs and both in divisions that were the Super Bowl representatives, Eagles and Chiefs, AFC West, NFC East. So I give last year's crop a free pass. You had two playoff teams from the last place group, and those two playoff teams came from the divisions that produced the Super Bowl champs. Let's do a brief history lesson about the last team to go worst to first. Do you know which team it is? I figured you can figure it out. I think you're a smart guy. You can figure it out. It would happen in 23.
Last team to go worst.
Think about a big surprise in 2023, a quarterback and a new head coach bursting onto the scenes and surprising everybody after going 3-13 the year prior.
I'll go with the Houston Texans.
Bingo. So that's the last team to take the traditional route, right? Terrible franchise. Houston's down and out. Deshaun Watson, blah, blah, blah. And then C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson comes from the heavens. DeMeco Ryans, Nick Caserio comes from the heavens, saves the franchise, and then they go worst to first. Like that's the traditional vibe that we get. Now, to be fair to the other 18 that have happened in the last 22 years, it's just a statistic that I update every year. I did not analyze each one individually. So I don't know how many of those scenarios are like the Niners, a good team that just had a bad year, and then all of a sudden the next year they get back to prominence, or like the Texans, which is this team sucks. The franchise is in shambles. They just paid Deshaun Watson all this, and they ship him out of town, and then all of a sudden they get rejuvenated. I think if you analyze this year's crop, I think there's two teams that stand out. One team that stands out in the Texans category, and then obviously the Niners. Like, I think the Niners is like just the one that's like hitting you over the head. But I'll be honest, would anyone be shocked? Actually, no, I would be shocked. But would it be that crazy to think if, let's say, and it probably would, we would need a Patrick Mahomes injury, I think, for this to happen, or at least missing a few games. But would anyone be shocked if the Raiders win 10 games this year? Like, would that be like, oh my God, the NFL has gone crazy? I mean, I think when you add up the pieces around what happened with Vegas, I think it is very fair for them to make a move from maybe not worst to first, but worst to the playoffs. And I'm kind of high on this Raiders team. I mean, I know I'm out here in Vegas. I did a deep dive on Chip Kelly. I really like what he brings to the table on offense. I really like what Geno Smith brings in terms of his consistency and execution and professionalism. And I think you're the one that said this. Someone said this recently. Pete Carroll did not come out of retirement to just be a 5-6 win coach.
Yeah.
He thinks he can win. And I think he's assembled a team around him that can compete. I love Bowers. I love JPJ. Like, I think Genty. Like, I think this offense can be legit. And I think with defense, they've got two really great players up front, Wilkins and Crosby. I mean, I'll be honest. I think if you were going to ask me what's the team that takes the traditional, this team sucks, now they're good route, I think the Raiders would be my choice this year.
Jared, I'm going to be honest with you. I could see just about every division having somebody that goes worst to first outside of the Giants and the Browns. Those would be the only two that would stun me. If Cleveland won the AFC North, I would be stunned. If the Giants won the NFC East, I would be stunned. Patriots are favored in 11 games. Obviously would take a lot. Buffalo's the heavy favorite. They have a very easy schedule. I would be surprised if they won it. If Drake May turns out to be a stud, we all know how good Vrabel is as a coach. I don't think it's insane that the Patriots could win that division. It would be pretty surprising, but I don't see it as like absolutely mind-blowing like I would the Browns and the Giants. Obviously, Tennessee, we talked about them last segment. I mean, you just highlighted it, right? The last team to do this was the Texans in that division. We've seen the last 2 years, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud take the league by storm. Maybe we get 3 straight with Cam Ward. They're 8-1 to win the division. I don't think it'd be crazy if they did it. You just brought up Vegas. I mean, you and I have been doing shows this whole week. I think one of my biggest takeaway, Jared, we'll be living and dying with the Raiders every week, man. That's gonna be our team.
Definitely betting them week 1 and week 2, no doubt about that.
Definitely beating them those 2 weeks. I mean, Kansas City's minus 120 to win the division, and they haven't been that low in a long time.
Yeah.
The big reason they are that low, Jared, is because of all the talk around Denver and the Chargers. I don't think there's enough talk, though, about the Raiders. And that's baked into the market, but I don't think people realize that. I think it's as low as it is because they're talking LA and Denver. But I don't really think people see Vegas as a threat, but I'm kind of with you. Whereas, I mean, look at like what this team's doing. I mean, look at kind of the talent that they're compiling on both sides of the ball, the coaching staff that they're bringing in. I think there's reason to get excited. And then in the NFC, I mean, the Bears, obviously, we've talked about the NFC North. Nick Costos talked about this on the show last week. I think he made an absolutely great point. You could draw all 4 teams out of a hat, Jared. Whatever team you draw, you could make a case that they could win that division, right? So the Bears, I don't think would surprise us. And then I think a lot of people would put the Saints in that grouping with the Giants and the Browns maybe as like teams that you just could never see win that division. I totally disagree. I think there's a path where New Orleans could win that division. What if Bryce Young turns into the quarterback that we've seen for most of his career? He did get benched right early last year. Atlanta, Michael Penix, we saw him start like 3 games. We don't really know what Penix is yet. They have talent on both sides of the ball, but they could certainly disappoint. And Tampa, I mean, losing Liam Cohen, this is the 2nd straight year now that Baker has lost another OC. They're going to be without Wirfs to start the season. Maybe they get off to a slow start and things just unravel on them. And New Orleans, Jared, I was previewing them on my show, Send It In Today, 1 p.m. Eastern time every Monday through Friday here on the BetMGM network. I get why everybody's down on New Orleans. But, like, you look at their home schedule, and there's a lot of home against the Jets, home against the Giants, home against the Patriots, obviously the Panthers. Like, there are some games on that schedule that they can win. And maybe the NFC South is one of those divisions this year where it's like an 8-win team does it, a 9-win team does it. So it is a long shot for a reason, but I think there is a path for New Orleans. So I really think the Giants and the Browns are the only 2 teams. Outside of San Francisco, though, I would agree if I were to put my money on something at the price, I think it'd be Vegas, and then I think it would be the Bears at plus 550. I think those would be the 2 teams that I would look at.
Totally agree. I mean, every time I read anything about Vegas, it's just this team was so inept offensively last year. I mean, remember when Luke Getsy was their offensive coordinator? I mean,
they had Antonio Pierce as their head coach. Like, they had no coach.
You were nothing. They had like, you go from that to Chip frickin' Kelly. I mean, I think that might be one of the biggest offensive improvements you could possibly make in a coaching room. To go from Luke Getsy to Chip Kelly, and from Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew to Geno Smith. And from, I couldn't even name a running back on the team last year. They had Josh Jacobs 2 years ago, and he departed for Green Bay. And last year, I don't even remember who was the running back last year, but now you get Ashton Genty. And then, oh, by the way, there's never been a tight end that's ever won an offensive rookie of the year, but we had one finish 2nd last year, and he's pretty damn good. And I'll be honest, in any year where Jaden Daniels doesn't turn into the second coming of God, Brock Bowers wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he becomes the first tight end to ever do so, which is really impressive considering what I just say. Luke Getsy is planning the plays, and Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell's throwing the ball, and Bowers still went for, 1,300? So, I mean, to me, and then I love their offensive line. They made a ton of additions through the draft. The JPJ kid is a freaking animal. Like, I think, and Genty, give me a number on carries for Genty this year. I don't think you can make it high enough. I
agree.
think 200 is low.
I agree.
Yeah, 300 might be the right number.
I was thinking closer to 3 than 2. Yeah.
I mean, and that's a rookie we're talking about here, but he's not an average rookie. You don't see running backs taken in the top 10 very often anymore. He deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. I know I'm drinking the Raider Kool-Aid, and they'll get their ass kicked in New England week 1, but like I don't think in the last couple of years that I've really been digging into this like really hard. I've been as excited for a team's offensive improvement because it's just I think there's so much potential here with the weapons. And so the stat that stood out from Warren's text was Vegas had 8 fewer touchdowns than expected last year, which again suggests that the offense was actually better than it should have been, or it was worse than it should have been last year. And they actually should have had a better year offensively. With all of that terribleness and that sludge in the coaching room and that inaccurate, untalented quarterback room. And you've addressed both of those quite considerably this year. I'm very excited about Vegas. The Niners that's low-hanging fruit. I think any person who does these shows that's going to go on here and say, oh yeah, the Niners, that's the surprise, that's the worst to first team this year. Yeah, no duh. Obviously, they're favored to win the freaking division. I think the Raiders. I think if you're going to pick a team that's going to go the traditional worst to first route, where you're actually getting value on them to win the division or to exceed expectations, I think Vegas is the choice.
I agree. 16-1 to win the division in the AFC West. I like you. I'm just excited to see what that offense is going to look like. That's been my problem with the Raiders the last couple of years is they've tried to find these quarterback or these head coaches that they thought were right. Josh McDaniels thing obviously didn't work out. Then Antonio Pierce takes over. The locker room loves him. They give him a fair shot. He wasn't the guy. Now you bring in somebody that's had success in the league, somebody that has won a Super Bowl. And Jared, that's the perfect coach for a team like this that is ready to take that next step. And you're going to have the energy and the youthfulness of Pete Carroll and how he acts when he's chewing bubble gum on the sideline. He's jumping up and down. Like, they're going to feed off that.
Yeah.
And, they got good talent, right? But the D-line, Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins on defense, offense, Genty, as you mentioned, Bowers. I'm excited to see this offense as well. And the Raiders could surprise. So keep an eye on them. 16-1, maybe worth a flyer in the AFC West.